And thank you for joining. Oh, recording in progress. Thank you everyone for joining today. We're very excited to have Penny McCune join us for a talk today about her journey from a temporary employee to president of SGI. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a few items of note. So we just wanted to let you know that online chat is there as an option if you have any questions. That chat will be monitored, so feel free to make use of that during the course of the presentation. This presentation is also going to be recorded. It will be uploaded to our WIL website following the event. And also anybody who's registered will have a copy of the recording emailed to them as well. Before we start, I do want to do a land acknowledgement, keeping in mind that this is the land acknowledgement for Regina, so please take a moment to be aware of the land acknowledgement in your area. We acknowledge the City of Regina is on traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Founded in 2001, Women in Leadership Foundation delivers inspirational programs that bring women together to collaborate in the development of their leadership skills and create positive change in the future of women leadership. If you have not yet joined, please visit womeninleadership.ca to learn more. We invite you to become a WIL member and subscribe to our newsletter, and the best part of it is it's free. Our mentorship program, we're so excited about this. We're excited to share that our award-winning virtual mentorship program is now taking applications for mentees and mentors. Being virtual, we removed geographical barriers so mentees and mentors can participate from all across Canada and the United States. If anybody is interested, we would love to have you look for more information. You can learn more and apply before the end of October. And you can take a look at that at our Women in Leadership website under mentorship. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker today, Penny McCune. This is a special honor for me because I have the good fortune of working with Penny in our SGI organization. So Penny began her career with SGI as a temporary junior clerk in 1985. Through the years, she has served in several strategic leadership roles and has been a key player in many important projects and initiatives. She championed a culture that focuses on employee collaboration and connection, led development of a new claims process, led SGI's transformation into a customer-centric organization, contributed to traffic safety improvements in Saskatchewan, and led expansion of SGI Canada, just to name a few. Today, Penny holds the position of President and CEO of SGI.
Linda freeze?
Yeah, on my end, Linda is totally frozen.
Yeah.
So sorry to cut your intro short, Penny, but I think with that, we will just hand it over to you. So Penny McCune, we're very thrilled to have you. And I'll handle your slides for you. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, it is a sincere pleasure to come and speak to a group of talented women. And I did put together a bit of a presentation to share some of my insights and learnings over the years. I just celebrated my 37th anniversary with the company. So it has been an exciting journey. So I'll spend about 30 minutes just touching on some of the high points through the presentation and then certainly leave some time for questions. So in the presentation, I thought I'd start off with telling you a little bit about myself, you know, kind of my upbringing and kind of, I think that for all of us, it's how we show up as individuals, and it's kind of important to start there. And then I'll touch on my career progression and the opportunities that I took throughout my career that really helped me progress in the journey. And then I'll touch on my values and my growth over those 37 years. And also kind of what I stand for, what has driven me and how that's kind of transitioned over my career. And if I would change anything, sometimes people ask me, is there anything you change? So I'll address that from the past and the future as well. So So I'll start with a little bit about me. So I grew up in Regina. I was born and raised here. And my parents definitely had a significant influence on how I show up every day at work, how I showed up my first day as a junior clerk, and how I continue to show up today is a big part of my parents' influence. So to give you some context, my dad was born in the 30s. My mom was a little older than my dad, but they both grew up in a time of poverty and recession. And my dad worked on a farm where, you know, when you see those old pictures of someone going behind a Clydesdale horse with a plow and holding on to a plow, that was my dad. That's how he grew up. He lost his parents early in life and was actually homeless for a little while. And he really found his own way. And but he basically used to work all day, hard labor for a meal. So when you talk about work ethic, somebody coming from that background, certainly me and my siblings learned that, you know, nothing in life comes easy and you got to work hard for it. So work ethic is definitely something that's been something really important to me and instilled in me from a very young age. Certainly witnessing the behavior of particularly my father. My dad went to work, he was the breadwinner, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. But my dad was very much demonstrated, you got to stand up for what you believe in. So he was definitely a people person, but I would always, it would stand out for me when something didn't go quite right, or if a team he was responsible for was accused of something or got in trouble, he was always there standing up for them and demonstrated that it's really important that you do that. That sometimes you have to be strong, and that being strong and being kind don't have to be, doesn't mean you can't be both. It's good to be kind. My mom was a very kind-hearted, loving, caring person. She looked after lots of elderly people. She looked after lots of kids in the neighborhood. She was the one who came on the school trips with us. She was just that really generous heart and very, very kind. And my dad was a little on the, you know, if you get pushed in a corner, you got to come out swinging. So, you know, I learned that, you know, yeah, you have to be strong because, you know, life can be tough sometimes, and you have to learn to be strong, but it doesn't mean you can't be kind. And to believe in yourself. My parents always would say to me that I could do anything I put my mind to. And they had taken in my mom's mom, so my grandma and my uncle also lived with us. And I had all this positive energy around me that really just said, you know, like, you know, I was an A student. So I think my parents were so proud, you know, both of them only made it to grade 8 education. And they just said, you know, you can go and do anything with your life and just believe in yourself. And so having all that coming into SGI as a junior clerk, I would say that I came into this building thinking like, hey, this is a good place to work and I'm showing up and I'm going to give it my all. And as I said, that's how I showed up on day one, and I still do that today. These last descriptors, extroverted, high energy, passionate, that all came out of learnings. I would say that was a building of self-awareness. I wasn't a real surprise to me that I was an extrovert because I love people and I get energy from people. Being high energy though, I never really viewed myself that way. So I just think it's really interesting when you take training and you know, go through leadership sessions and stuff, what you learn about yourself and being more self-aware is also really key to your ongoing success. So I'll talk about my career progression. As you heard, I started as a junior clerk in the auto fund right out of university. I can tell you honestly, I never dreamed I'd be CEO one day. At the time, I just thought I'm going to get my foot in the door. I just finished university. It was hard to get a full-time job. So I took this temporary position, thought it's a good company. We'll see what happens. And never imagined I would be here today. And I also never imagined that I would go and work in the salvage division, but that's where I started. I left Regina to get on full time. I wanted to be an accountant, and it was really hard with the union to get into the finance area. So I moved and took an accounting clerk job in salvage. And salvage was really interesting because, as I said, I certainly never thought, well, I'm going to go work for insurance and I really want to work in salvage. But I think that move really set me up for my career. It was a small division. And the interesting thing about Salvage is it was typically the training ground for new vice presidents because it was such a small division. So over the course of a few years, I worked for a couple of different VPs that were new at the time to senior leadership, and several of them went on to be president of SGI. So you never know. At the time I was working in Salvage, we did kind of go through a bit of a crisis where the president of the day said, why do we sell parts in Salvage when every other insurance company just sells whole vehicles? You know, why do we do that? And so we had to pull together a business case in a very short period of time. And I remember working really long hours, and I guess the moral of my story is that later in life, when the president of the company remembers you from Salvage and that you were there helping with a crisis, you build your reputation every day that you're with the company, and you never know who you're working with or for that could become even more influential in the future. So it's really important about how you show up, no matter what level or who you're working with. You're just showing up and doing the best, and that's the reputation that you're building within the company and within with others that you're working with. From Salvage, though, once I got on full time, it really, I just applied for everything. If someone said, hey, there's an opportunity here, if it sounded interesting, I thought, you know, why not? I'm going to put my name in that. And I ended up working for every division except for two in the company. And those two divisions were HR and legal. But I worked, I think I would say my career started, or my progression started, with projects where you work on things, and things like the Salvage crisis. Somebody else has something going on. Hey, that person did a good job there. Maybe they can work on this project. And so that's how my career started. And then I got into management, and things started moving from there. So very broad, I guess, opportunities. I led the Safe Driver Recognition Project in the Auto Fund. And once that was successful, I was asked to go lead the Alberta Expansion Project, which was a completely different side of the company on the competitive side. But again, just how you showed up in a project, they go, hey, she did well on that project, let's put her over here. So my real focus was on learning new skills and growing as a leader. And every time I took an opportunity or took a new position, it was always in trying something different. And I love learning. So, so that's part of the reason why I did move around so much. So the next slide is about opportunities. And I would say this is probably one of the keys to getting to the CEO is I never said no to any opportunities. There was sometimes I was offered, or something was, a job was posted, and I'd be like, oh, you know, I really love my team. I love what I'm doing here. I'm not done yet. It's not time for me to go on. But then I'd go, well, yeah, but what if I regret this? So I'm going to put my name in. So I had my parents in my head. You can do anything you put your mind to. So I'd always throw my name in the hat. And sometimes I was even told, you know, if I'd go and talk to the manager about an opportunity, they'd say, yeah, you know what, I don't think you should bother. There's some people in this area, you know, that, you know, I know they're interested and they got lots of experience. But I put my name in the hat anyway. And darn if I didn't get a job when I was actually told, don't even bother. So I think it's really important for people to, especially women, to take those opportunities, and that even if you do not get the job, you learn something. You learn something about why didn't I get the job? Where do I need to improve? And they learn about you. So the people who are doing the interviews, even if you don't fit that job, they might be going, geez, I really like the qualities in this person, and they remember you. And it might just be a few months or somewhere down the road, they come and tap you on the shoulder and say, I remember you from that other interview. I think this role might be something you're interested in. So it's always worth it, I think, to put your name in. And even the no's, I learned a lot. And I think it helped me to progress on to my next opportunities as well. The other thing I would say about when you do get opportunities, and I think, again, I've had some discussions with people about imposter syndrome and, how women, well, we don't have experience in that area, so I don't think I'm going to put my name in. And I think you should. And I think that the real trick there is, if you are successful in getting the job, is to make sure you ask the questions. A lot of people go into a new area and they go, well, now I'm the boss and I don't want to ask the stupid questions. Like, no, they're going to know, but they do know. They do know you don't know the area. I led underwriting and I never underwrote a policy. I led claims and I never adjusted a claim. And I knew darn well going in, some people were going to say, well, how the hell did she get this job? So I went in and said, well, yeah, I'm new to this job, but I'm here to help. So I'm just going to ask a lot of stupid questions. And I spent a lot of time with the experts. And sometimes, with fresh ears and fresh eyes, you listen to people and you can pinpoint things that are the root cause of some of their issues, or you see it from a bit of a different perspective, and you can help to move things forward, because that's really what your role is, right? Is to help them understand where we're headed, what's our strategy, and empower them and give them the tools they need to do their job, and you build that trust. But I highly emphasize, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions. And so that was something that I did as I took new opportunities. I'd jump in and I wouldn't pretend to know. I'd just be honest and get right to building trust and looking for low-hanging fruit to demonstrate that I'm listening and there to help. So when it comes to values and growth, obviously, I think all of us have our core values. Many of mine stay rooted in my upbringing. But when I say never forget where you came from, a lot of that also has to do with my actual career here at SGI. I always like to keep in mind that how I felt as a junior clerk, my perspective of leadership, what I was getting from them, what I was missing. And as I progressed through the ranks, that would change. And sometimes, you could be someone who you're crunching numbers and your boss takes it and goes away with your work and you don't have any idea what they did with it or what became of it. Was it involved in a big decision? Things like that is, I never forget where I came from. And so when I go out and talk to people, I always try and meet them where they're at, because I remember I was there once, and I try and talk to them coming from where I was when I was in their shoes. And I listened to them the same as I wanted to be listened to from where I came from. The best advice I ever got was when I first went into management, and my boss, who had been my boss for years, I told him, oh, I got this job. And of course I was younger and involved in every sporting event and social event that SGI had to offer. And I was having a lot of fun. And I remember saying to my mentor at the time, well, now I'm going into management. I guess I'm going to have to, settle down a little bit, maybe stop having so much fun. And he said to me, no, that is where people go wrong. Be yourself. Do not change. People shouldn't go into leadership and then change who you are. You got to just stay who you are. And so I just took that as okay, I'm going to stay who I am. And I was actually kind of excited about it, because it was a relief, because, when you think, I've got to be different now that I'm a leader, I didn't really even understand what that different was going to be. I just thought that I wasn't good enough the way I was, that I was going to have to change and show up differently. So when he kind of gave me the permission to be myself, I've never looked back. I've just stayed who I am, and I just show up and be authentically who I am, and that's how I roll. And I do think that really helps with building trust. Like, if you can show up and be yourself and show that you're vulnerable and you're just as human as everybody else, I think it gives everybody else permission to be authentically who they are. And I think it's really empowering for them to see that and be able to show up and be who they are. I think it's really important in building trust to make sure you give credit where credit's due. And I wanted to share this story because this is one of the leaders who I wouldn't say was the best leader I ever had. But something that she did, I organized this event. It was actually opening a youth center in Prince Albert. And I said I wanted to get the staff involved, and the executive came, and she was in charge of media, and she made the event way better than I had ever imagined it would be. But when it was done, the president came to me and said to me, "Oh, Penny, like that was amazing. Like what a great job." And I was trying to give her credit, and she said, "Yes, Penny did a great job, and it was 100% her." And she wouldn't let me give her any credit. And that never left me, because I thought, geez, she really built trust with me, and I worked 10 times harder for her after that, even though she wasn't the best leader I ever had. She gave me credit for something that she helped with. And it also taught me a leadership lesson that it's not about you as the leader, it's about empowering your people and building that trust, letting them shine, because you shine too. So I wanted to share that story. With every challenge, there is an opportunity. So I led quite a bit of change in the company. And as I said, I might have led a project in the auto fund. And next thing I know, I'm on the competitive side and leading Alberta. And I remember going into a meeting with a group of the underwriting management. And I was asked by the president, why don't we sell this particular product in Alberta? And so I called this meeting. And when I was walking up to the room, it was first thing in the morning, and I could hear them. They were angry. They're angry. Why are we talking about this again? We already made this decision. We don't want to offer this product. And by the time I walked into the room, I looked around, there wasn't even a chair. So I had to go find a chair. And by the time I kind of squeezed myself in, I barely sat down. And one of the gentlemen just banged his fist on the table in front of me and made me jump. And he's like, "You didn't approach this properly, and you didn't talk to our boss." And I was just getting it from all sides. And so I basically let them calm down a bit. And I just said, "Look, I was just asked to come, and I'm trying to collaborate with you because you have considered this product before. If you don't want to be a part of this, that's okay. I'll figure it out." And they calmed down, and then they started to support me. But the moral of the story here is the opportunity that came out of that. I got back to my office, and my team from Alberta was phoning me and asking me if I was okay. And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay. Why?" And they go, "Well, we heard how you were treated in this meeting." And I'm going, "Oh, well, who did you hear it from?" Well, it was a person from underwriting who called my team in Alberta. And I realized, oh my goodness, someone on the underwriting side actually thought that was wrong. And oh, maybe I have an ally. Well, I reached out to that person, and it was one of the best allies I ever had in working through that whole Alberta project, and then some in my career. So when I say there's a challenge, and with every challenge, there's an opportunity, I wouldn't change a thing about some of those tough things you go through, because something like that happened, and it made my career better, and it made me stronger. Personal experiences with self-awareness and self-confidence. I want to talk about my dad again, because my dad was 61 years old, a strong, healthy man one moment, and the next minute he was diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away in 6 months. And so it was pretty traumatic. And this was before I was in management. And my mom and I decided to palliative care him, keep him at home. And so we cared for him. And when he passed, I'm the youngest in the family. I had no idea I was the strength in the family. My mom fell apart, my siblings fell apart, and I organized the funeral, and I did his eulogy. And I never knew I had such strength. So I just wanted to say that to the women on this call, because I do think women have a lot of strength and resilience when it comes to things like that, when it comes to family, when it comes to children. And I want you to take that strength and use it in your careers, because I remember shortly after my dad's funeral, I applied for my first management job. And I went into that interview, and they asked me, "What are you most proud of?" And I said, I've always said, well, first it was I graduated university, and then it was what I accomplished in my last job. And now it's like, I just did my dad's eulogy. I had no idea I had the strength to do that. And the interview felt like nothing after doing something like that. So I just want people to remember that, use your personal experiences and for self-awareness and building self-confidence, because sometimes the things you do in your personal life are way harder than anything you're going to do in your career, and recognize that strength in yourself and use it to your advantage in your career. The last one about networking is just a tip that I always use. And this is, I always pass along third-party compliments when I hear them. And this is because years ago, one of the presidents said at a board meeting, and I wasn't even in management yet, but I did something for the board, and my boss came back and they said, you know, the president said, you know, that Penny, you can put her anywhere and she'll do a good job. And boy, did that mean the world to me. Even though my boss always encouraged me and said, oh, Penny, you do a great job. For some reason, that third-party compliment meant so much more to me, because it wasn't someone just saying to me, you're doing good, you're doing good. It was someone saying, that person said this about you. So every time I hear someone pay a third-party compliment, I reach out to that person, whether I know them or not, and say, did you know that so-and-so said this about you at the meeting? It builds relationships for me, but also between those people. And so if you're talking about networks, team building, and building trust, that's one of my tricks. I'll move to what I stand for, and I'm just about done. I would say that, you know, kind of what makes me tick, what drives me has kind of transitioned over the years. And I think this is typical for anyone who's had a long career. But of course, when I first started as a young person, came in with that work ethic, it was about, you know, let's achieve something, right? For me and for the people that I work with, that's what really drove me. But as I started to move up in my career, it really became about the teams and the relationships. What drove me was I can't let my team down. I want to make sure we're all successful. How do we work together to make this better? And then when you do something, it's way more meaningful to celebrate with a team than go home and talk to my cat about what I did that day. So that was really a big focus for me. But now later, and as I've gotten to more senior positions, it's really about making a difference. And I think this resonates even with the young generation now. It's not about pay anymore. And for me, it never really was. It was about, yeah, sure, I liked having a good job because, hey, I could go out and have fun and do things and travel. But it was really about the joy of coming to work with great, talented people, doing meaningful things. And certainly now where I'm at in my career, it's about making a difference for the company, for the province, for everybody, for the challenges that we see in the world. I really want to make a difference. I want to point out that your strengths, you should also be self-aware about your strengths. And that really changed with me. I remember years ago, somebody saying to me, what's your strength? And it was someone on the executive, and I said, well, it's auto, because hey, I knew auto inside out, and I could tell that they weren't that impressed with my answer. And then I realized, well, it's not really about auto, it's about leadership. You know, whether I led projects or whether I led a division or a team or whatever, it really was about my leadership abilities. And I think that sometimes we get stuck in maybe a work stream because, hey, this is our expertise, right? And we're waiting for that person in front of us to move on so we can move up. And this is where I encourage you to broaden your thinking and try something outside the stream. If that's really what you love, you can always come back to it, but try something outside your stream and focus on your leadership. And I'm sure you're going to learn a lot, and you can always come back to your technical stream. So I'll end with, would I change anything? When I look back on my career path, I wouldn't change a thing. There was times where I was disappointed that I didn't get jobs. I think if I would have got those jobs, I may not have ended up here. And it's just been such a fulfilling and dynamic, well, it's just been a wonderful ride. And I think I've even surprised myself. So I wouldn't change a thing about the past, but I do have some change that I'm very passionate about moving forward, particularly in this role. Tamara Tarian started an intentional leadership culture here at SGI, and it's really taken off and really made us a lot more accountable and a lot more effective on how we work with one another. I'd like to take it up a notch and move it to inclusion, and to really get to a culture where everybody understands that being different is a good thing, and that we need to value that, and that the more we share and listen to different perspectives, the better the solutions that we're going to end up with. And I want people to feel safe and that they can come to work and be their authentic selves. I just can't imagine any other way to get the best out of people. And why not have people come to work and bring their best what more could you want for them, for people working for your company, and what's better for the company. And that means you have to give them a safe place to share their individual perspectives. So that means that we all, leaders and everyone in the company, needs to use that growth mindset, listen to the perspectives of others, and really use those perspectives to maybe add to your idea or the solution that you might have come up with, but to really start to value that. And that would include women supporting one another. And I'm really appreciative of groups like this, because I do think women need to have places to go, to talk to one another, to share challenges, but to also support one another. I didn't have that a lot growing up in the company, but I think it's because, you know, we competed, you know, for positions, and you know, I just didn't see as much support between women that I'd like to see, and that's something that I would like to change here at SGI as well. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll stop there and see if there's any questions or comments. Thank you.
Awesome, Penny. Thank you so very much. I know that I am very grateful to be in an organization that is led by Penny, because I get to see the behaviors that she models every day in everything that we do. And so I know I'm very grateful to have such an inspirational role model in my career every day. So as Penny said, we are going to open it up for questions. If people have anything that they'd like to ask Penny, we have the chat open. So we'll just kind of take a look at what we're putting in there. So Pam put in a note here about approaching how to build trust. I'm wondering, Penny, if there's anything you can elaborate on with that, on building trust in the relationships that you've had.
Yeah, well, I think for me, building trust is, again, keeping it real, like being authentic. Like I always like to initiate discussions, but I think the listening for, that's one of our key cultural things, but listening to people and being honest about what you know and what you don't know. And I think the other thing is, you know, when you're listening for ways that you as a leader can help the team. And if that is the job as a leader, is to give the tools to the people so that they can effectively do their jobs. So I think you know, the building the trust is listening for those opportunities, empowering people, giving them credit. And if you can ever give credit, like I shared the one boss to people in front of other influential people, oh, wow, that really helps to build trust fast, because it does show that I'm not only listening to you and trying to help you take your idea forward, but I'm also willing to give you full credit for that. I'm not going to take it myself. So that's one of the big things. I think it's about passing along those third-party compliments, because you hear more of them when you start listening for them. You hear them all the time. That's really, really key. But I really do think it's about listening and bringing people in. Like, you know, when you go into a new team, there's always people who are more willing to speak up, and then there's always people who have a lot of experience, but they're quieter. Give them space. Ask them, hey, do you have anything you want to add? You know, you've worked here a long time. I've seen your work. You do a great job. I'm sure you have some perspective, and you draw it out, and you start building trust with those quiet people. You get a real engaged team. And then, boy, that's when things get fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Penny. We have another question here about mentorship. So a question about, how did you find a mentor? Did you approach someone? Was it a formal pairing, or how did you approach it?
Probably my most significant mentor was a boss of mine for quite a while. So I worked for him in one area, and then he moved on, and then I ended up working for him later in life. And so when he moved on, well, and he impressed me. He's the one who told me, be yourself. And I remember when he first became my boss, there had been a restructure, and he actually got demoted and came to the area to be my boss. And I had just got back from a ski trip. And he came around the corner of my cubicle and said, do you want to go for a coffee? And I'm like, okay, like my boss had never actually come to take me for a coffee before. And we went up and had a coffee, and he was really honest with me about, yeah, this restructure came. I got to be honest, I'm not really happy. Like, this is an emotion for me, and, I'm going to make the best of it. And I know you're the analyst in the area, and I'm going to need your help. But he was just so brutally honest. I just immediately respected him. And so I did help him. I did help him. I worked very hard for him, and he was very good at acknowledging, and he actually took me with him to meetings to help me understand what was going on with my data. So he started the trust, then he moved on. And we stayed in touch because I just found his leadership so authentic. I knew he would always tell me the truth. So I picked him as a mentor, and I never actually even went to him and said, will you be my mentor? I just stayed in touch with him after he left as a leader. And then when an opportunity opened up in his area later in life, I ended up moving back to reporting for him. And he was my main mentor. I also have a leadership coach who is a godsend. We all can get in our heads sometimes, and some of those challenges, I'm proud of my resilience, but I'm not going to say that I would bounce back like immediately. Sometimes it takes time, and it's people like a mentor or a coach that really help to give you perspective and, to help you go, did you do everything you possibly could to rectify that situation, whatever happened? And then you have to just decide to let it go and get back to work, right? I've had a few, I guess, kind of more informal mentors in the office besides him. And those are more just more like I would call work friends, people who I've worked with and built trust with. And I go to them and talk to them about, things that I need to work out. But the coach, the leadership coach has also been really effective for me as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Penny. We're going to take one more question before we move into some networking. So this question is, from my experience, I see a lot of men in senior leadership roles, and I think it's amazing to see, such an amazing woman in your role. Any advice on how to be seen as an equal by our male counterparts?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, so this was a hard transition for me because of how I came up in the company, and we definitely had an authoritative top-down leadership style. And this is why I want to make sure people feel included and that differences are valued. Because when I came in with all that enthusiasm, I was reprimanded lots if I spoke up. So they actually kind of, I won't say beat it out of me, but they definitely worked it. So I got to be scared to speak up until I was in a group that I trusted and stuff. And I would say that even though as through experience and I think as my network grew, I became more comfortable in the company. I got braver at sharing my voice. And of course, as you move up in the leadership ranks, you just have to, like, if you want to sit at the table with them and show up as a leader, you have to be brave and you have to speak up. And I can say that, when I first joined the executive, probably took me a couple of weeks to get real comfortable, and then you just start and then you just have to keep at it. And I don't think there's a human being, well, there might be a few, but when you have something on your mind and you're going, oh, I'm wondering about this. Is this going to sound stupid? Is this going to make me look stupid? There's probably 3 other people in the room who are thinking something similar. And just ask the question. Just ask the question. And, even if it is, if, they laugh at you, go, well, I learned something. Thank you. You gotta just be brave. And I'll share this with you. I would say that even on the executive, there was sometimes, depending on who was in the room, where I'd be like, maybe I won't bring it up just now. And it was about 3 years ago, I was getting close to thinking about retirement. And I decided, you know what, I'm running out of time. I've got stuff to do to prepare, for my successors and whatnot. And I just thought, I don't have time. I'm showing up. And I just showed up and I said what I wanted to say. And the president said to me, would you consider being CEO? I was thinking about retiring. And I started showing up and being myself and actually just saying anything I wanted to say, and any question that came to mind, I started saying it, and he asked me if I wanted to be CEO. So if that's not a good reason why we shouldn't be speaking up, I do think we bring unique perspectives, and a lot of men do understand that women do have a lot of strengths that they can benefit from. So if you start speaking up and showing that, they might become more supportive as well. So I encourage you to be brave. Start slow if you have to, but say what you need to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Penny, and thank you so much for fielding some of those questions from our chat. Just to reiterate once again, really truly appreciate you being here. There's just been some comments that you probably haven't been able to see because you've been talking, but a lot of people just talking about what an amazing leader you are and how authentic you are. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So we're going to move into our breakout session now. So our time is a little bit shorter than what's on the screen. But here's a couple of questions to reflect on in your breakout group. So what's one story from your own career path that shows your key personal values? Or how did Penny sharing her story motivate or influence you? So we're actually going to take about 10 minutes in your small groups to do a little bit of networking. And then we're going to come back for a couple of closing slides and tell you about some upcoming events. So enjoy your networking room. We're going to have Carolyn break you out right away.
We are all back. We will hand this back over to Linda to finish up our session.
It doesn't work very good when I'm on mute. Thanks, Carolyn. I hope you guys all enjoyed the conversations that you had in the breakout groups. It's always great to have some time for conversation with our colleagues. So I hope that you guys all enjoyed that. So we just want to take a couple of minutes to wrap things up and talk about a couple of upcoming events. So the first one is we'd like you to join the Women in Leadership Foundation, our Montreal chapter, and hear from a brave woman in technology who has learned the importance of saying yes. Come and learn how to not let your inner critic stalk you. Key ideas that will be covered include perfection is the enemy, failure is inevitable, we all have that voice, and be brave and stay centered. We also have an event, our WIL Vancouver chapter, our speaker series, From Surviving to Thriving After a Reorganization. And that will be held on Thursday, November 3rd at 4:30 p.m. And then we have our next event that's coming up for our Saskatchewan chapter. So we'd love for you to join the Saskatchewan WIL chapter on Thursday, November 10th. Again, it will be a noon hour session. A noon hour, I guess, if you're in Saskatchewan. You won't want to miss this incredible opportunity to listen to a panel discussion from leaders in the field of human resources from WestJet, Synergy Credit Union, and Kyndryl, to hear their take on what job seekers should consider when it comes to their personal brand online, as well as their views on the impact of networking. So you'll want to take notes in this one. Tickets will be available soon. You can continue to watch our website for that. And just in closing, I'd like to once again thank Penny for her time today. I'd also like to thank everyone who attended and your engagement in the breakout sessions. So thank you so much for joining us today. And just a reminder that to take a moment and follow us on social media, and just be sure to sign up for that newsletter and get all the information and notices of upcoming events. They'll come right to your inbox. So you'll see a sign up option in the drop down menu under more on the womeninleadership.ca website. So that's everything for today, everyone. Thank you again so much. We really appreciate your support and for joining us today for our session. And we will see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.